Hey now everybody, it's Blackmetalwerewolf making a brand new video for you this week. And today's subject is something that a fan has asked me to get my opinion on. The other day a fan sent me a message asking me something and I thought it was a relatively good idea and thought it would make for a good video and get some good discussion going. And that question was, if I thought metal music and metal subculture would be considered underground. So let's talk about it. So as soon as I started thinking about this subject, I realized very quickly that my opinion was incredibly biased and one-sided, because the more I started thinking about it, the more I realized, I'm an insider looking out, and through that, I'm not going to be able to really give an accurate opinion on all of this, whether or not metal is considered mainstream or not. So I actually went out and asked a friend who does not listen to metal what their thoughts on this whole subject are. And it was good to get an outsider's opinion because it really was an outsider looking in, that kind of thing. So when I first originally started thinking about this subject, I did not think that metal, for the most part, was underground at all. Mostly because I consider a lot of the bands I listen to be relatively mainstream. But then I noticed that they're mainstream within the world of metal, and the realm of metal is considerably different than, what the general public thinks of it. For example, if I were to say the name King Diamond to essentially any metalhead, chances are they're going to know who I'm talking about. And they may not be a big fan of his or his music or his style or whatever, but they're going to know who King Diamond is. I consider King Diamond mainstream, just like Amon Amarth. I would consider Amon Amarth to be one of the biggest metal bands out there right now. I would consider them mainstream. But if I went to someone who does not listen to metal or know anything about heavy metal, and I were to mention King Diamond or Amon Amarth, they would probably not have a goddamn clue what I am talking about. I'm certainly not trying to say that metal is not mainstream, because there are plenty of mainstream metal bands. For example, Iron Maiden and Metallica. Those are two incredibly well-known bands, and everyone knows about them. Now, not saying that just because someone knows about them doesn't mean they know the music, right? For example, Iron Maiden. Everyone knows Iron Maiden, probably one of the most popular metal bands to ever exist on this planet. Big Iron Maiden fans, they probably own all their albums, seen them several times. They have a very big fan base. But even outside the world of metal, people know about them. But, they don't really know much about them. They probably, know Run to the Hills, Number of the Beast, maybe The Trooper. Here in Canada, those are the three songs that I would hear on the radio, but honestly, I've never heard any other Iron Maiden song be played on the radio outside of those three. So yes, Iron Maiden, I would definitely consider them a mainstream band outside the realm of metal, but even with that being said, the casual listener probably doesn't know much more about them outside of, their three big hits, if you can even call them that. Whereas Metallica, I remember when those terrible Guitar Hero games came out, and everyone knew Enter Sandman, and it is a pretty damn good song, but, you go up to your casual listener and you would ask them more about Metallica's music, and chances are they wouldn't be able to tell you much more outside of the Black Album. So yeah, Metallica, I would definitely say they're a gigantic mainstream band, but really outside of their few hits, are they really well known in the mainstream? Once again, a gigantic fan base in metal, and so many fans that have all their albums and know all their music, but even in the mainstream, outside the realm of metal, they're known, but are they really that well known? I remember last year when Slayer came to Toronto on their big, final tour, and I went and saw them, and I was, posting all over my personal Facebook page, I love Slayer, I'm going to see them on their final tour, it's going to be great. And I was talking to some people at work who have me on Facebook, and they're like, oh, you're going to go see Slayer. I'm like, oh yeah, you guys know Slayer. They knew the name, but not a single person knew the music, because they weren't metalheads. What were the odds of any of them actually going out and buying a Slayer CD and getting into it? Very slim, and none of them actually did it. I got a little funny story about that, actually. When I was talking to one of the guys about that, he was, after the concert, he's like, oh, so how was Slayer? I'm like, oh, it was great, I got a t-shirt, got to see the band, had a great time. And he was like, oh, I bought a Slayer t-shirt once, I don't listen to them, I just wanted to look edgy. And at that moment, I have never wanted to punch someone in the face so fucking bad in my life. Oh, let me tell you. So now that I've kind of covered whether or not metal can be considered mainstream or not, I also kind of want to talk about what it means to be underground. Because honestly, I'm not 100% sure what that technically means. Because usually when I hear someone say that their music is underground, I immediately assume there's some pretentious douche who's just trying to sound edgy and trying to get girls to think they're deep and dark and, you know, they're so different. But, you know, are they? Like, for me, if you have a record label, like if you have a record deal and you have a music video that's relatively professional, you are not underground because you've made it. You got a record deal and you have a music video. Now, a lot of people will say, well, are the music videos being played on TV? Well, probably not, mostly because most metal music videos rarely ever get played on TV. And in my opinion, at this point, does it even matter? Most music channels don't even play music videos anymore. MTV is a shit show of what it used to be. And here in Canada, we have MTV's knockoff, which is called Much Music, and they don't play music videos anymore either. And honestly, most people don't even pay for television anymore. Most people have ditched out on satellite and cable and just opted to go for streaming services. And I can't say I've come across a single streaming service that streams music videos that has like an MTV kind of thing. You know what I mean? So really, if you have a music video and you can get it on YouTube, you know, that to me is the equivalent of getting on MTV 20, 30 years ago, because, you know, the media has just changed so differently that you don't need to get on TV anymore to be considered mainstream, because even the TV doesn't even show the shit you want to be shown anyway, right? It's like, honestly, I love Slayer. I think they're a mainstream band. I've never once seen a Slayer music video on television. Even when I was younger and TV and, you know, streaming services didn't exist and it was all about television, never saw it. I don't think I've ever seen a Metallica music video on TV either. And if I have, would have been very rare and would have been very few and far between. So the way I figure it, like, it's hard for me to determine whether or not a band is underground or not. Like, I understand there are things like Bandcamp and these other websites where people can go and put their music on that, you know, they don't have a record label, but they still want to make music. They're still making their own albums. I suppose that could be considered underground because, you know, they're doing it by themselves, doing it their own way, recording it themselves, putting it all together themselves. I would consider that underground, but really, you know, most music I listen to is not underground. Even though with the Metalhead box, I get a lot of bands from Bandcamp and stuff like that. But I don't consider it underground for some reason. I just consider this band that I've never heard of. I just don't like using the term underground, I guess. So now that I just kind of covered the music aspect of it, I want to talk about the subculture aspect of it. Would I consider metal subculture to be underground? Once again, I certainly wouldn't say so. Mostly because I would say that the majority of metalheads wave their metal flag relatively proudly. Now, not saying that they're always going out with, you know, their battle vests on and a band t-shirt, but most metalheads a lot of times will talk about metal if asked about it and won't be ashamed to talk about it. It's not something they need to keep secret. They will talk about it relatively openly because it's something they're very passionate about. And they're not talking about 100% of the time because that's just a ridiculous thing to think about. I know a lot of people kind of watch my videos and follow me on social media and think that it is 100% encompassing my life, when in reality it isn't. When I go out in public to a restaurant, I don't harass the waitress about my thoughts on metal. I don't harass the people I work with, constantly badgering them about it. It's just here on social media and on YouTube. It's something I'm very passionate about, not something I like talking about, and I can find a community that with people I can interact with, and it's great. But, you know, I still wear band t-shirts out. Most people, metalheads, love wearing their band shirts around, showing it off. So I certainly wouldn't consider it underground, but would I consider it mainstream? In the right circumstances, absolutely. Going to a metal show, fucking every metal freak in the 100-kilometer distance will go to a show in Toronto to see their favorite band and wear their vests, their t-shirts, the whole fucking shebang, just to show their metal pride. So I consider that a relatively mainstream thing to do, to go out there and really fucking show your fandom. So I would not consider that underground at all. But now, of course, I'd like to get your guys' opinion on all of this. Do you consider metal music and subculture to be mainstream or underground, or is there a big gray area? Like I said, I was an insider looking out when I really need to talk to some other people and get an outsider looking in opinion, just to kind of get perspective on the whole thing and to just kind of broaden my own horizons of this whole subject. So please leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of this whole thing. Give me your stories, your opinions. I'd love to hear about all of it. So like my past videos, I will be doing an album recommendation or an album warning, and today is another recommendation. Now with this CD, I really can't remember if I recommended it in the past or not. It seems like something I would have done, just I really can't remember, and if I did recommend it, it would have been so long ago, back to when no one watched my videos. So hey, it's worth a shot. I was just listening to it the other day and I thought it was really good, and you know, why not recommend it again if I had already recommended it. Either way, the artist is Sirenia, the album is The Seventh Life Path. This is a goth metal album, so you know, I'm really not the biggest fan of goth metal, but I was listening to this and you know, it's not too bad. So if you're a fan of goth metal, you'll definitely like this. If not, maybe you can pass on it. Either way, I still think it's worth a listen. I very much enjoyed it. So that's it for today's video. If you like what you saw, don't forget to like and subscribe, leave me a comment letting me know what you thought of today's video. Check out some of my past videos and share them with a few of your friends while you're at it. If you want to keep up with me on a more daily basis, you can follow me on Facebook and on Instagram. I also have a PO box open. All of that info is down in the description. I also have a handful of patches left for sale, so if you'd like to get your very own, you can click right over here. There's also a link down in the description. Overall, thank you very much for watching, guys. And don't forget to stay brutal.